Hello and welcome to another episode of the CPMC podcast. I am MC, as always, joined by CP. Chris, what's going on tonight?
Oh, Matt, I am sweating the Celtics tonight, my beloved Celtics. I know this is a football podcast, but I just got to get that in here. I got a recording. I'm going to go watch it after. I'll be very, very sad or very happy, depending on what happens there.
Since when did you pretend to be a Celtics fan?
The last couple of years, I gotten heavy into the Celtics. I just watch them whenever they're on. That's all. Big Jason Tatum fan.
Yeah, I mean he's easy to root for. I like him. He's a good guy. I like Jaylen Brown. Good squad, but I think you're not a Celtics fan. Get out of here.
Been a Celtics fan for at least 6 months. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about here.
You're as much a Celtics fan as I am a Warriors fan.
Oh lordy, lordy. Matt, we got football to talk here. This is our first pod since the NFL draft. I mean, we've made some mentions on Twitter, some allusions to things, and we're both in lockstep here. This draft class stinks. What an absolute disappointment this draft was. I mean, if for all the hype it got over the last couple of years, I don't want anybody. I want if I don't have Bijan Robinson or one of these QBs in a super flex, get out of here. I don't want any of these picks. None of them.
Yeah, I can proudly say, Chris, we were able to sell our futures last year, our 2023 picks last year at a premium saying, hey, this is a hype draft class. Give me back what I deserve for these picks. And it paid off, Chris, because yeah, we're together on this one. It's just a draft that we don't really want any part of. We didn't have any 101s, thankfully, lined up. So there's gonna be no Bijan Robinson in our future. And even these quarterbacks, Chris, they're fine and everything, but I mean, what am I getting excited for? I mean, name the best wide receiver that any of these three guys gets to throw to. Go ahead, or actually, give me three total wide receivers.
Is it Michael Pittman? I mean, is he the top wide
And
receiver?
then like Robert Woods out in, I think he's in Houston now, number two.
Oh my lord.
Uh, I mean, there's so little to be excited about with this
Oh,
class. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, I guess is the big winner now after Swift. But even when that pick happened, we were like, okay, so now we have a total of 4 or 5, maybe 6 guys that we want. Now we'll call it 7 or 8. So, hopefully you're able to get off your picks. I mean, there's still some people who are loving this. I mean, I see guys trade into like the second, third round. Spare me with that. Give me Keenan Allen all day long instead of a second rounder in this group.
oh God, you're telling me I would take. I mean, there's a slew of veterans that I would happily take ahead of some of these draft picks, especially later on. Matt, one other point of contention here. I saw some chatter in the league here. They were dogging you for your pronunciation of. I'm going to pronounce it how you pronounced it, Z Zaino. Okay. They were dogging you for your pronunciation there. They said the price of the podcast was worth it just to hear you try and pronounce that. So I'm going to throw my hat in the ring here and I'm going to say it's Zano one is the pronunciation. They can let us know in the YouTube comments if that's correct or how you pronounce it. But I had to put that out there because
I
they,
I
they were
did see
dogging you
that. I
earlier.
did see that. I know they posted like a link or something too about an old show. Was
Yeah.
there audio to that as
Oh
well?
yeah. Oh yeah. There was an audio clip of you pronouncing it. It was
I
great.
I remember because I saw them typing about it and then I saw the name and I in my head I said Z Zaino again. And that's what I was a little bit nervous coming in. Obviously the nerves are gone. I'm sticking with Zaino. Hopefully at least they get a chuckle out of it, but I mean somebody tell me something that what it should be.
Listen, I told you I'm going with Zane 01, and we'll leave it at that.
All right, let's get to it then, Chris. It's been a while. We have seen this league before. Things have changed a little bit for you. We're going to break this down into 2 shows. We're going to start at 12 through 7 in our first show here, give you our rankings 12 through 7, talk about each team, talk about potential moves, all that type of stuff. Then we'll take a quick break, go 6 through 1, and get this thing going. Chris, I'm ready to go. Let's start with our number 12 team. We've got C. Ben 9. C Ben 9 is our number 12 team, Chris. Let's take a look at old King Bennett, see what he's got here. On the lineup, we got Derek Carr, Al Jair, goodbye to him, Edwards Alaire, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram. We got Pickens, Christian Kirk, Brandon Ayuk, and Tannehill. Guys on the bench. Desmond Ritter looks to be the guy out there in Atlanta, at least to start things off. We've got Kareem Hunt. Geesh, what else do we have here, Chris, worth a mention? Not a whole lot. Sky Moore, we'll see what happens with him. Austin Hooper, that was a short-lived love out there in Vegas. Mike Gesicki, I mean, you're gonna have to explain your love for Gesicki because I'm just not seeing it. Now we're looking at picks, Chris. He's got a first for next year. It's not his own, unfortunately, since you've got him pegged. He doesn't have his 25 first. Oh boy, Chris, this team is in a world of hurt.
Yeah, rightfully number 12, in my opinion. I mean, there's just not a whole lot here. This team, I think, needs to completely hit the reset button. I know he doesn't have his picks, but he's got to start acquiring picks and getting rid of some of these players. There's just no way this team can compete. I mean, he's getting zeros out of his running back position. You know, Ryan Tannehill, I mean, could be replaced midseason. Granted, he does have Will Levis here, which could work out for him. But man, I mean, there's just not a lot of talent here, and he doesn't really have any picks. I mean, he's got a first next year. We'll see where that ends up. Desmond Ritter, I guess, could be okay, but do you like him long term? Not really. He's getting zeros from the running back position. I mean, this team, you said it. This team's just they're in a world of hurt. And, he does have some players that I think do carry some trade value, which works out well for him. I think you can get a first for Calvin Ridley right now. I think you can get a first for Christian Kirk right now. Um, I would do that in a heartbeat. I'd sell off these quarterbacks. I know you don't have your pick and you're probably not going to get it back, but we got to start acquiring assets here. We've got to hit the reset button, aim for 2026. I mean, and just trying to acquire assets that are going to be good in that time frame, I think is the way to go with this team. This team's looking rough.
Yeah, there's no sugarcoating it here, Chris. He's got to be a massive Jaguars fan here to be rostering Kirk, Ingram, and Calvin Ridley. I just don't see a way that all three of those guys are getting fed. I mean, we've just got to get off of every single person here. I would try to start no players this year. I mean, that's my best advice for this team is absolutely just get rid of everybody. Just start stockpiling. If they'll let you trade 26th, try to aim for that. I think that's a really good point here, but it's missed its window and the window is firmly closed. And it's not as if we've got some young guys to open this thing back up. We just don't. I mean, this team's in a world of hurt right now, and it's just going to have to be a complete rebuild here. I think the only guy I'm maybe hanging on to is Pickens, just because I don't think his value's all that high. And he's young, but other than that, they all can go.
Yeah, I think you've got to wait for Pickens to have a breakout game and then try and sell him off, or a breakout couple games and then sell him off, because I mean he may not fit your window either. Unfortunately. But yeah, it's complete sell across the board here.
All right, Chris. Number 11, we've got Crawdad Man who says, I'm here to win. Not so fast, Crawdad Man. We've got Justin Fields. We've got Bijan here, Isaiah Pacheco, Debo Samuel, Jerry Judy, Isaiah Likely, Alan Lazard, Khalil Shakir, John Mechie, and Aaron Rodgers. We've got Baker on the bench. We've got Donovan Peoples-Jones. And that's about it. Taxi Squad's got Okonkwo and Richardson, which is nice. He's got his own first next year. He's got a couple extra firsts in 25. So it seems like we're going a certain way with this thing here, Chris. I mean, we are taking a considerable step forward from what we just saw. If this team made the playoffs, I don't think I'd be shocked entirely, but it's fine.
Yeah, I think the difference here between this team and the last team is that I think you see the arrow pointing up with this team, right? I mean, it's heading in the right direction. We've got the top end talent here in Justin Fields and Bijan Robinson, and even our first 5 starters here look pretty good. But, then you get to the back end here, Isaiah Likely at tight end. This is a two tight end premium league. I don't think we mentioned that earlier. So, yeah, fairly important position here. You've got Isaiah Likely starting. You've got Lazard, Shakir, John Mechie, and really not a whole lot on the bench, Matt. Nothing really, maybe Donovan Peoples-Jones you could plug in there, but that's really about it in terms of position players. So that's why I've got him ranked down here at 11. But with the young talent he has, with Anthony Richardson here on the taxi squad, plus the extra first he's got stockpiled, I mean, this team's headed in the right direction. I just think this year is going to be tough for him. With the back end just being so poor. But I think he's headed in the right direction. Should just continue along this path. Get a good pick next year. You've got 25 first stockpiled. Just keep building this thing. I think this team's going to be really, really good starting next year. And in 2025, I think he could take off.
Yeah, I love this team, Chris. I think this team's a really fun one. I think this is an interesting one for him to take a look at over the next few years. I'm trying to think of the moves here, right? You've got to get off of Pacheco. I mean, because if you're loaded up for 2025 being your year, I'd even try to sell Bijan for an absolute ransom right now because I don't think he's going to be a true contender this year if he does happen to sneak into the playoffs somehow. And I don't even think he's one guy away from being a locked in contender next year if that's all he gets. So I think 2025 has got to be that year. And guys like Jerry Jeudy should still be relevant at that point. We'll see about Debo. Your quarterback situation is going to be great with Richardson and, Justin Fields up here. So I'd slowly start moving in that direction here, Chris. Start with Aaron Rodgers, see what we can get with him. Baker Mayfield, see what we can return with him. And then just try to see what that looks like in terms of picks. See if we can maybe expedite this thing and see if we could acquire a couple more 2024s. And then I feel a little bit better about keeping the likes of Bijan Robinson and not trying to sell him for an absolute mint. So I love this team here, Chris. I think he's headed in the right direction. And I think just a few more moves are going to create a little bit more clarity for him. But either way he slices it, I think it's just in a good spot right now.
Definitely. I totally agree. I think he's, completely on the up and up here. Moving Pacheco, I think, is a really good idea here. Not many people talk about it, about this guy, because I think his trade value is sort of in this weird position where I don't think you can get a first for him, but mid-season, 4 weeks in, if he's producing numbers, you may be able to get a first for him. And I think that's fine from a contender. If you can get a late first or even an early second plus a small piece, I'd be fine with that return for Pacheco. I think it's a nice turnaround for him. And that helps a roster like Crawdad just kind of continue to fill out the rest of his roster with young players. The Bijan Robinson trade for a mint, I think, is interesting because if you think about it, you traded CMC a couple years ago for, whatever, 4 first, Barkley for 4 first, whatever it was. Those tend to have paid off. So I think it's even though you just drafted him, I just wouldn't rule that idea out.
All right, Chris, let's get to number 10. We've got Dom Bus here sitting at number 10. Dom Bus at 10, looking at a lineup of Danny Dimes, Dalvin Cook, a lot of negative energy around Dalvin Cook, man. Brian Robinson, Mike Evans, Jahan Dotson, Dalton Schultz, Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, Adam Thielen, and Geno Smith. We got Jimmy G sitting here on the bench. Sam Darnold, I guess, worth a mention these days as well. Alexander Madison, Bob Woods, the aforementioned, Allen Robinson finding a new home. Can he get that thing going again? McCole Hardman as well. We got Juwan Johnson, Chris, who I'm absolutely loving in like the 17th, 18th round of startups this offseason so far. Peyton Hendershot, we'll see what happens with him out in Dallas. Taxi Squad's got pretty much nothing. A lot of people liking this Musgrave fella out there in Green Bay. I am not one of those guys, so but he's getting a little bit of love going late second, early third in these rookie drafts. Chris, not a single pick until 2026. The note that you left when you did the rankings here, Chris, I think is spot on. He just missed his window here.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I don't know how he did in the previous couple of years, but I think the window for competitiveness is closed here for Don Bus, unfortunately. And I think now it's the time to turn around the ship here. I mean, we still have guys with plenty of trade value. You've got the Dalvin Cook Madison combo that you can trade off. Mike Evans, you can certainly trade off. Kamara, if his legal troubles are behind him, you can trade off. Jamal Williams is sort of a really interesting name. We've been kind of on him in drafts recently and kind of reaching for him a couple rounds ahead of ADP just because he is fairly cheap. I think, the way they use Kamara and the way Jamal Williams fits in there, I think he could be really productive this season. So I think he's got a lot of points that you can maybe trade off and get like an early second or a mid second for him. And I think you're happy with that. Listen, he's going to score points here. All these guys are point producers, but there's really no flash. There's no sizzle. There's nobody who's going to be the game breaker for you and just get you really in playoff contention or title contention. And if that's the case, you really got to hit the reset button. Unfortunately, he's got no picks, so I don't know if he's going to like hitting the reset button. He may just kind of stick with it and see if he can make the playoffs and get hot. But I don't like that spot. I mean, at best, this team is a team that sneaks into the playoffs at number 6. And then what? Maybe you win a game or two. I have a hard time believing this team has the juice to go anywhere in the playoffs. I think it's just doesn't have it. I mean, we don't have an RB2 here unless Dalvin Cook gets traded, and you're in big trouble.
Yeah, Chris. I mean, if we're looking at this team as if they had just done a startup, it looks like they've drafted everybody from like the 6th round, and that might be generous with Danny Dimes and Geno Smith on, right? They just traded away their first, 5 picks of the draft. And that's where we're at right now. So Chris's team reminds me a little bit of a Subaru Outback hatchback with 285,000 miles on it that you just keep repairing.
You're clinging to life, yeah.
And you're just saying, hey, to the mechanic, can I get a little more life out of it? This thing's nearing the cliff. We've got to bail on this thing now, Chris, because if it goes off the cliff, I mean, there's a good chance in 2026 that the only starter that he's going to have is whoever he drafts in the first round of that draft. So he's got to do something. He's got to get off these guys and just start loading up seconds or something right now.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's the thing. It's going to be a rough couple of years here, right? I mean, he's going to have to sell these guys. It's going to be rough because he's not going to get any premium picks back. That's the biggest thing, right? None of these guys are fetching high firsts. None of these guys are even fetching mid firsts at this rate. So he's not going to get premium picks back, but you have to start stockpiling the picks. You have to start taking shots. Maybe some of the seconds you accrue hit, and all of a sudden you kind of snowball that into future trades to get more assets. Basically, this team is in acquire asset mode, I think, from here on out.
Yeah, it's got to be. Just get something somewhere for these guys. All right, Chris, let's get to our number 9 team. We've got ASAL 14 at number 9. We've got Dak Prescott, Nick Chubb, Leonard Fournette, Chris Godwin, Hollywood Brown. We've got Mayer at TD. We've got James Connors. We've got Smith and Jigba at flex, Rashad White, Antonio Gibson currently at Superflex. We've got Jordan Love sitting here on the bench, Mac Jones as well. We know those guys will be getting some time this year. What else do we have worth a mention, Chris? Maybe Curtis Samuel, Valdez Scantling, Hunter Renfro, Chase Claypool. Tyler Higbee is another guy, Chris, that I'm gobbling up in 17th round as well. If you haven't noticed, we are punting tight end hard this year. If we don't get Kelsey in the second, we are punting entirely at tight end. Guys on taxi squad here. Nothing at all. Picks intact in 2024. He's got his first in 2025 as well. Yeah, Chris, your note was perfect. Just kind of a meh team. I mean, it's okay. I mean, there's some star power here with Nick Chubb, even though his value's slipping. Dak Prescott, I still like. He's usually going in the top 30 picks of this draft pretty easily. He's got some young guys sprinkled in here with Mayer and Smith and Jigba. But yeah, it's whatever, this team here, Chris.
Yeah, this is about the 4th time I've looked at this team, and I don't know what to make of it other than I'm sort of not impressed. You know what I mean? I think it's like it's okay. I think it's going to be competitive most weeks, but I mean, who's the week winner for you? I don't think that exists here on this team. You know, if Jordan Love is bad, we're in rough shape here with Mac Jones and Jordan Love in our super flex. We don't really have a ton of depth or much at all, really. I mean, Hunter Renfro, Chase Claypool, it's not great. I mean, we have our picks intact. That's a good thing. I like to see that so he can, add some more talent next year. But I think with this team for the foreseeable future, we're going to be stuck in this stagnation of mediocrity almost. Like I can't see this team ever getting over the hump and winning a title. And I can't see this team ever being towards the bottom and getting that elite game breaker. You're just going to kind of be in this sort of 6 to 10 range. Um, and really, I mean, he's never really going to be a title contender. He's just going to be kind of in that average range, league average range. And it's hard to see him either getting above or below that. And I think when that's the case, man, we got to do something drastic, I think would be my suggestion. I don't know what that is exactly. I mean, maybe that's trade off, your veteran players, Dak and Chubb and Godwin, while they still have a lot of value, um, and go the youth route. Grab youth and picks. I mean, we've said it for the last 3, 4 teams, but I think that's what I want to do here too.
Yeah, you have to, Chris. That's not even really, I don't think, a question here, right? It's going to start with Dak Prescott. We got to get at least 2 firsts for him for the future. Nick Chubb, 1+ as well. Chris Godwin, at least a first coming back. I think he can still get that. James Conner, we'll see, once he starts scoring points and puts a little bit more value to his name. I think I like that as well. Even Rashad White is a guy that I could see myself getting off right now. I don't even know if you're getting a first. Again, he's going to be a guy we're going to need to see his usage before we start demanding a first. But, I think this team has the trade value to be able to start to return some things and to get the rebuild started a little bit sooner than what we've seen from some of the teams in the past. But listen, I think this team is okay. I think it will eventually get there for that reason. But man, it's not going to be this year, Chris. I think you're right. If something doesn't happen, we're stuck in mediocrity for a while.
Yeah, he's got to figure that out. I mean, the other option would be to try and gather some veterans for guys like, JSN and Michael Mayer and, the Mac Jones on his roster and his picks. But I don't think that's the way to go. I'm with you here. I want to sell my veterans while I can recoup the value for them. And there's plenty of teams that are going to be bidding for them. We're going to start to take a step up pretty soon.
All right, Chris, let's get to our number 8 team. We've got Relaxburg here. Relaxburg sitting at 8. I've got T-Law. We've got Brees Hall, Kenny Walker, A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, Fryermuth with Javonte Williams, James Cook. We got Charbonnet in there. We got Bryce Young at the Superflex. Guys on the bench, not a whole lot worth a mention just yet. Maybe Zay Flowers. See what happens with him. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 firsts in 24, a couple extra seconds, an extra third, couple seconds in 25. This team's going a certain way. I love this team here, Chris. I absolutely do. I think this Kenneth Walker situation is a little bit unlucky, although he does have Charbonnet as well. This team is young. This is an attractive team, Chris. This is going to be a lot of fun for this guy over the next couple of years. He's not going to enjoy the fruits just yet, but they're coming.
Yeah, Matt, I put it in my notes to you. This is my favorite team of the bunch. I absolutely love this team. I love the way it's built. I love the way it's headed. He's got all these picks. He's got his picks intact in 25 as well, plus the extra picks in 25. I mean, he's got the young talent. He's got the young QBs to kind of anchor him in Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young. He's got the young running backs here in Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker. He's got picks next year coming in to further supplement running back. His wide receivers look great here in AJ Brown and Chris Olave. I mean, Javonte Williams may not work out, but he's a fine player. Um, Zay Flowers back, with a little more depth at wide receiver. This team is on the up and up. This team is going to be extremely dangerous as soon as next year. This year's not the year. I mean, he doesn't have the depth for it. He doesn't have the running backs for it in the flex spots. But man, I mean, it's hard not to love this team and the way it's headed. I would not. I mean, I honestly would not be shocked if this team made the playoffs this year as like the sixth seed. Um, but I think next year, as soon as next year, this team's going to be a force to be reckoned with and will be really, really tough to beat.
Chris, I might go as far as saying the ceiling for this is a title. I don't think that's that far of a stretch. I mean, we're like you mentioned on the back end, we're a little bit lacking. We've got some question marks with Javante's health, with James Cook's role. Who's going to run the ball in Seattle right now? But I think we're in a good position right now where if these guys hit, we're looking at a real true contender. I really do believe that, Chris. Uh, I mean, there's not much else to say. I absolutely love this. I wouldn't rush it either, though, Chris. I think if we happen to have success this year, I think that's great. I wouldn't be in a rush to get off of these first that I have. I think I just cruise into next year feeling even better about the upswing that I'm on.
Well, that's the question, right? I mean, that's the biggest question, and I'm glad we got your answer on that. Because the question this team is going to have is if it's doing well, if it's contending, would you trade off these firsts for veteran help to kind of go after a title? I'm with you. I would just stay the course here. I mean, unless things really break right, like James Cook is a thing, Javonte Williams is a thing, then maybe I'd consider it. But I'm with you. Stay the course, I think, under 99% of the time and draft those picks next year. Maybe move around with those draft picks next year as after you're seeing how things unfold. But he's gonna come up with that question during the season if things break right for him. And I'm with you. Let's stay the course. Let's make these picks. Let's continue to build with this team. Really go after it next year.
Yeah, I mean, based off your rankings, Chris, he's got C-Ben, who you ranked as the worst team, and he's got Don Bus's pick, who you had as third worst, according to this list. So, he's going to have a couple of premium picks that he's going to be able to dangle out there. I think it's going to be an interesting spot for him. We'll see what he does. All right, let's get to our last team of the first round here, Chris. We got RHL 1994, Darnell to the Mooney here. At number 7, we got Stafford, Gibbs, Akers, Watson, Jameson Williams, David Njoku, Kadarius Toney, Ramondre Stevenson, and Darnell Mooney. Superflex is currently Sam Howell. We'll see if that ends up being Trey Lance. He's got Eli Mitchell sitting here on the bench, DJ Chark as well. Harris Campbell, we'll see what happens with him. Rondale Moore. Geez, not a whole lot else. Noah Fant. I kind of like him to be on the upswing this year, Chris. That's based off of absolutely nothing. Hendon Hooker sitting here on tax. He's got an extra first going forward, couple extra in 2025. Yeah, Chris, this is a fine team. I think this is a fair ranking, kind of middle of the pack. There's just a lot of question marks here for me, which I think is what's going to hold them back.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team I kind of struggled with. At the end of the day, um, I think he's just maybe slightly better than some of the teams below him, but I think there's a ton, I mean, just a ton of volatility on this roster. But in the end, I kind of just sort of split the middle here and said maybe some of these guys would hit, and kind of give him that upside. I think he's got plenty of upside here with Christian Watson and Jameer Gibbs and even Kadarius Toney. I mean, he's getting so much love right now. Ramondre Stevenson is a guy that we just got our first share of, and he's going usually too high for our taste, but we got a decent price on him. QB2 is a mess for him right now. Maybe Sam Howell gives him production. I think that's if he misses the playoffs, I think that's why. And it's because Sam Howell doesn't work out, Trey Lance doesn't work out, and he really doesn't get that production from QB2. I love that he's got extra picks though, Matt. I think it allows him to be versatile in the regular season. If he needs to grab a player that he thinks can put him over the top, he can go out and do it. He's got these picks to do it. We haven't seen, V Blade yet, who is his 2024 first extra pick. So that's looking like a top half team. You know, I would consider making some moves with this team to kind of shore things up. But I think it's sort of in the middle. I think you want to wait a month here, kind of see what happens first month of the season, and then kind of figure things out which way you want to go. But I think it's okay. I think middle of the pack is where I had them. I like them better. Certainly much better than our bottom three teams. I think you could maybe interchange him with the two prior teams below him. But I think he's going to be a fringe playoff contender with this team.
Yeah, Chris, and that might be my concern for the next few years. If we don't, we've got to do something, I think. I think we've got to pick a direction and go with it, or I'm afraid we could be just sitting in that little range because, like you said, there's no real like dominant top end talent. I mean, can we count Gibbs among that? I don't think we can just yet. Where it's just kind of a solid team, a good team. And again, we haven't heard from V Blade yet, so we don't know where that pick is just yet. We've got this one as being middle of the pack. This team could just be middle of the pack for a couple of years, and I'm a little bit concerned with that. So I think we've got to pick one direction or the other. We cannot stand pat, but I don't know which way I would go. This team is young enough, Chris, but it's just lacking that ultimate star power.
Yeah, it's a tough spot, similar to the other team we mentioned that kind of needed to shake things up, make a move, and pick a direction. It may lack the star power, may not have it. Jameer Gibbs is not that guy. If Matthew Stafford kind of still is feeling the effects of his injury, kind of thing. So you're right. I mean, I do think this team does need to make a direction. He's got the assets to do it. He's got those 3 2025 firsts. He's got 2 2024 firsts. I mean, we can make some things happen with that amount of picks. I think we mentioned it before. You can get Keenan Allen right now for 2 seconds. I mean, we haven't seen Keenan Allen yet, but a similar type player, I think you can get that and just kind of short things up if you wanted to go that route. If you wanted to go to the sell route, I think you got plenty of guys who you can sell off as well to make some hay that way.
All right, that's going to do it for the first half of our show. Go get yourself a drink and then get ready for the second half. We'll see you guys in a little bit.